Hey guys, this is Katie Dozier and Colin Moshman for CardsChat.com, and we're continuing on right now with me and Colin's course, Become a Winning Poker Player in 30 Days.
Yes, and day 19 is playing the small blind. So my question for you, Katie, is have you ever secretly just wanted to start limping all the time?
Yes, every time I drink at a casino playing cash, that's when I feel like I want to limp for some reason.
You know what? It's a nice, friendly style. You get to play a lot of hands. I get that.
Everyone likes you when you limp because you're easy to play against.
Exactly, except when you're the small blind and it's optimal strategy. So we're going to talk about that. But first, we have this big rule, which is that if somebody is raised before you, you need to be tight because of the fact you have the worst position. Post-flop, you act first in every street. So if you're unsure, just tighten up a lot facing previous raises.
Yeah, you're pretty much immediately at a disadvantage when you're in the small blind. And so you really need to take that into account or it's easy to make a lot of mistakes.
Definitely, a lot of post-flop trouble spots. Now, I want us to do something. I want us to play a hand together right now. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready to win.
Okay, blinds are 50, 100. I put out a nice raise to 300 in the small blind. You've got 9-5 suit in the big blind. What are you going to do, Katie?
I'll tell you what I'm not going to do, son. Fold. Okay, I'm either going to 3-bet you if I'm feeling spicy, or I'm going to go ahead and call. And that is mainly because I'm getting 2-1 in position. And you're going to be out of position, uncomfortable the whole time in the small blind. But I appreciate that when you gave me this hand, you put yourself in the small blind because that was nice.
That doesn't sound very friendly.
I never said I was actually friendly when I play poker.
That is fair. And that comes to a fundamental small blind strategy, which is that if you raise, good players in the big blind are going to defend very wide. All you're doing is playing a larger pot out of position. So this is why this is the one position where you want to limp a lot when you're first in. If the big blind's tight, sure, raise against him. If it's a maniac, fold. But you're going to be doing a lot of limping. And I thought, Katie, we might go ahead and pull up a specific range for doing that.
I think that's a great idea. And it's interesting, too, that the game has evolved to be that way. People used to fold a lot more in the big blind, and it used to be more correct, I think, to open raise as opposed to limp. But it's really changed as the years have gone by.
Yes, absolutely. So this is just going to be a very approximate graphical representation, to use a fancy phrase there, of hands you might play in the small blind. And for the most part, we're going to play anything that has some post-flop playability. So most suited cards. In fact, if there's an ante, you're probably going to want to play any two suited cards.
Would it be too stupid of me to suggest that if the hand is at all pretty, you should probably be playing?
That is an excellent rule. I like that rule a lot. You can play pretty much any king. Probably would have been easier if I scrolled instead of tapping literally all of these by hand.
Well, we enjoyed that. We enjoyed that.
But assuming there's an ante, just like you said, any kind of pretty hand, any hand that's post-flop potential, you're going to try to limp in, getting a great price. So this is a rough, small blind, open limping range.
Because nobody ever called 9-3 off pretty. That's for sure.
Exactly. Yes. And you can also play a super wide range if you're facing limps. You're getting great pot odds. And any non-junk hand, you should go ahead and play in the small blind there. So like you said, you can also stay aggressive. And if you have a strong hand, you can raise it. You can 3-bet if somebody's raised before you. Just make sure to use larger raise sizing because you're going to play out of position and you don't want to incentivize your opponents to play against you.
Yeah, that's really important. You should definitely take a hand. You know, I think a good rule of thumb is to kind of think about it as well. I would 3-bet this on the button and my hand is so strong I'm going to 3-bet in the small blind. What would I 3-bet to on the button? And then increase that size in the small blind. It should be bigger than you would do if you were going to have a positional advantage in the hand.
Absolutely, right. So we're in the small blind. We're going to raise usually to at least 3 big blinds if we're first in, and we are going to raise. If the button raises to 2.5 blinds, then maybe we're going to go to a full 10 blinds, a full 4x 3-bet because we're out of position.
It is not the time to be shy with your bet sizing there.
Exactly, yes. And then post-flop play. So you want to be aggressive. In limp pots, if you think you have the best hand, you should usually value bet. You should semi-bluff a lot. If your head's up, blind versus blind, you should bluff. You should stab. You should, be aggressive. Like, for example, the 9-5 suited hand, I'm going to be in there being aggressive, and I'm probably going to get owned, okay? But you're not going to give up easily either.
No,
so
I'm not.
Ranges are wide.
Ranges are wide. It's very true. It's very important to play that aggressively.
Definitely. So I think at this point, Katie, tell me what you think. I think we should actually pull up some hands that feature the small blind and talk about the best lines to play in them.
That sounds great. So I see you've selected your favorite player for us to look at their hands.
I have. I'm a little bit nervous, Katie, because I feel like, what if I do something that's just completely ridiculous or totally out of line? Are you going to make fun of me?
Oh, yeah. We are all going to make fun of you. Everybody's going to post. No, I'm sure your hands will be great. And thanks for selecting your own hands for this video. Let's see how you take this one down, and if you do. Or if you know, what never happens in a poker video? Somebody selects their own hands and they lose every single one. That you never see. So.
Well, this is going to be the first time. As
the
you
first
see,
time.
I misplay all of these.
Every
I lose
hand,
all of them.
they're terrible. Well, everybody abandons the course. All right, let's go. So what are you going to do here with the king deuce suited?
All right, so here we are in a spin and go or jackpot format, and stacks are kind of awkward if we raise. This is a pretty strong hand, blind on blind, but we don't want to raise full, we don't want to raise call, we don't want to shove in for 18 blinds without ante. So to me, this is a perfect spot to limp this playable hand.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that so far.
And we might shove some low pocket pairs or maybe an occasional low offsuit ace, but for the most part, hands we want to play, we're going to limp. He checks, and our default plan is going to be, when we limp pre-flop, that we stab the flop. And here we've got a flush draw. So you know what? That's only going to help things. We're semi-bluffing, so always nice when you pick something up. But for the most part, if I had missed here, I would also be stabbing.
And when you limp, I think it's very important to have a plan, too, obviously, pre-flop. So if you get raised, what's your plan there pre-flop with the king deuce suited?
I would call a smallish raise. If he raised to 90 or more, I'm going to fold. And if I have a little bit stronger, then I'm going to start defending more and limp shoving more. With king deuce suited, if he raises a significant amount, I'll just fold.
All right. So you had a plan. That was a test.
I have a plan. Yes,
Okay,
I've got a plan.
Good.
Now, like we said, you want to be tight in the small blind, but when you do very well against your opponent ranges, you can go ahead and put in a raise.
And should.
Yeah, this to me is a good spot. We do very well against the buttons open limping range with king queen offsuit. So to me, I like raising here.
I do too. I would have called you a nit if you just completed at this point. So I'm glad to see the raise.
She is a harsh critic, ladies and gentlemen. But she's telling the truth. You do have to raise in the spot like this. Probably what I would do here is I would also raise king jack offsuit, and king 10 offsuit I would just complete. And then from suited kings for king 10 suited or better, I would put in the same raise.
It's hard to argue with. You know, I'm looking for any weakness to critique, and I haven't found one yet.
Well, maybe this will be your lucky hand. So we limp again. Now, this is a cool spot because if the big blind checks back, that's great. We're playing a small pot out of position with this hand. But what if he raises?
We've got to have a plan.
We do. And here I think this is a great spot to put in a limp 3-bet. In other words, to shove over his raise because there's a good risk-reward ratio with 80 already in the middle that we can pick up without a fight. And when he calls, the vast majority of the time, we're going to be flipping against 2 overcards.
Yeah, I really like this play, and another factor that I like about it is when you're playing these shorthanded games, especially where these scenarios come up more with exactly the same opponents, is that you would also very likely do this with a high pocket pair as well, so it's balancing your range somewhat too.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of stronger hands you're going to do this with, so it works so well. And here he calls. Let's see if the plan works out. This actually works out terribly.
It didn't work out. But you know what? Even before we saw the 9s on that board, does deuces ever win? I sound like Norman Chad now.
Exactly.
Deuces never wins.
Exactly. Yeah, that spelled doom immediately.
Yeah.
But you know what? You get a pocket pair 1/16th of the time. So even though it doesn't work out here, this is a play I like a lot.
Yeah, I agree with it.
Now, we switch to a 9-man sit and go on the bubble.
Things can get kind of tense on the bubble.
They can. A lot of salty table talk, perhaps.
Right, I know. But especially, this scenario, it's an uncomfortable one, right? Because, you know, you're second in chips, and the big stack's in the big blind, and this is an uncomfortable spot for a lot of people with what to do. Should we just fold everything and all hail the chip leader, or should we get involved some?
Exactly, and we will be talking in a later video about playing the mid stack on the bubble and at MTT final tables, but for the most part we want to do what we can get away with. So here, this is a pretty playable hand. We're getting good odds of 4-1, so we see if we can get away with some limps. Good player in the big blind is going to attack us a lot, but here he does let us get away with it. Katie, do you like this bet, or would you check?
Yes, I like going ahead and betting here. I think checking certainly wouldn't be crazy. I mean, we definitely have a real amount of showdown value here with the king high. But, you know, some of the time we check and he bets like full pot and we're like, what? This is obnoxious. So I tend to prefer, you know, taking the aggressive approach when in doubt in the small blind.
Yeah, I agree with you. And anytime that you don't have showdown value and you've limped the small blind, you almost always want to bet because the alternative is to give up. Here it would be fine also to check and evaluate, check, call a bet, maybe see if we improve. So both options very reasonable. Katie favors betting, which I do in this hand. And here at the turn, there's a good chance that our hand is going to be best. Pretty unlikely he has an ace, given there are two already out there and he didn't raise pre-flop. So my plan here was to check and call if he fired.
That's good. I definitely like that plan.
He checks back. And Katie, what I wonder is, what do you think we should do at this river? Should we check it down? Should we go for value?
I think that we should definitely go ahead and go for value here. I think if we were up against a different seeming player type, one that might decide that they're going to make some real attempt to randomly represent the ace at this point, then we could check hoping to induce a bluff. But that's kind of fancy play syndrome, really. I would go ahead and value bet around half pot, not huge, to get an 8 or a 7 to call.
Just like that. And look at that cool sizing. I bet 198. Everyone at the table is thinking, wow, Moshman's so cool.
I don't know. I mean, if I was at the table and knew your hand, I would be thinking that's a little small for my taste.
Okay.
But that's all right. It's a lot better than checking, I think.
Fair enough. And we do win the pot. This is from the Sunday Million Open Limp Queen 6 off. This was, I believe, when we pulled up the small blind open limping range, the worst hand we showed. And here we're
barely
getting...
pretty.
Barely pretty, exactly.
You know, on a good day, maybe she's cute, kind of a thing.
I love that edgy humor that Katie is known for. Getting odds of about 5-1, we tossed in the 60 chips. Big blind have been playing pretty aggressively checks. And here I check, and the reason for that is because betting is fine, but we do have showdown value. It's unlikely our opponent is going to fold if he has any better hands, such as an ace, obviously a king or a 9. And we can also improve. With the queen of clubs, we have backdoor straight and flush draws. So I check, planning to call a bet.
Yeah, I definitely like that play.
Our opponent takes the bait, and this doesn't change too much, but it does give us a pair, which, hey, I'll take.
I'll take a pair over no pair. It's true.
Yeah, and in the context of blind versus blind play, this is a relatively strong hand. We have a pair. Pair is good, I've heard.
Yeah, I've heard a pair is good a lot of time. Now we have a better pair.
Yes.
3 pairs, I don't think counts for very much in Hold'em, but we do have it.
That's a really good point. We've got at least 3 pairs here. Our plan is to call once again, but he checks back. And what this shows is, first of all, he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't have showdown value, so he stab flop, he bets the turn to maybe charge a draw, and then gives it up. And meanwhile, from our perspective, we had showdown value, which we took advantage of.
Yeah, I think that we took advantage of that nicely with the check call, too. I mean, that's, to me, this is a great hand to exemplify the power of check call with a, you know, hand that's not something super exciting on the flop.
Can I say I'm flattered?
You should be flattered.
Today, we have our big quiz question.
And so this quiz question is really featuring Dat Will Do Pig. I love that screen name so much because it's a reference to Babe, right? Which is one of my favorite movies. It makes me cry like every single time. So I'm kind of hate sweating us here. I'm kind of rooting for Dat Will Do Pig. But it's Babe. How can you root against Babe?
That's a really good question. Is that today's quiz question?
Yes.
Okay. All right, guys, pause the video.
And go watch Babe.
All right. So today's quiz question, you guys are going to play the hand right along with us. So everyone folds to hero, myself, in the small blind. So part 1, what should we do here? Should we fold, call, or raise? Pause the video and decide on your answer. Okay. And the correct answer here is that you should limp. So small blind, we've talked about limping any kind of playable hand. This is a playable hand. But with that said, Katie, I feel like maybe we should give them credit for one more answer here. What do you think?
I think that we should do one more.
All right, then let's do it, which is to fold as well, because this is a little bit marginal, like 6-3 off I would fold.
Not very pretty.
No, so I think that folding will also get credit, but there's not really a reason to raise here out of position with this very marginal hand. So limping, top choice, but folding will also get credit.
And folding because you just want Babe the Pig to win, that's also acceptable, right?
No, that's actually collusion.
Oh, okay. Take that back. That's not part of the course.
So quiz question number 2. As played, should you check or bet here? And Katie, what would you say is the answer to that question?
I would definitely prefer to go ahead and bet here. The cool thing is, it's actually a semi-bluff also. We have an open-ended straight draw now, which is about as much as you can possibly hope for with 6-4 offsuit. So I definitely like continuing, and we don't have any showdown value as is. So.
Exactly. So we've got a good draw. We've got no showdown value. We bet full credit for betting here, none for checking. The pig continues on.
Well,
we see a turn.
He has to, you know. And I think, is this another quiz question?
Part 3. Ace of spades. Do we check or bet? And Katie, what is the answer to part 3?
I think this is a perfect card to continue with. I
Great.
really like continuing here.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And the reason for that is because we still have no showdown value unimproved with our 6 high. This is either the nut low. Maybe we could have 6 deuce. Either way, we are pretty low down there. The ace of spades is a good bluffing card if our opponent has some kind of hand, like let's say 7-3 of hearts. He's not really going to want to see another overcard spade, so plenty of better hands can fold. So full credit for continuing to fire this turn and stay aggressive in the small blind.
And having the open-ended straight draw to me is just icing on that cake and yet another reason. So it's really, I think, the perfect card to continue. Couldn't ask for a better card.
Couldn't.
Except for hitting, maybe.
So that is today's quiz question, asked and answered, and that'll be our last hand.
So the last hand was Babe losing, and you expect people to like this video.
Oh no. So that is going to be our look at the small blind for today. Thanks very much for watching. This has been Colin Moshman and Katie Dozier on behalf of CardsChat.com and the Become a Winning Poker Player in 30 Days course.